37th Gene Key. Family Alchemy. Programming Partner, 40th Gene Key. Codon Ring, the Ring of Divinity. 36, 37, 22, 63. Physiology, solar plexus, dorsal ganglia. Amino acid, proline. The 37th shadow, weakness. The real pole shift. As humanity gradually begins to move out of the astrological age of Pisces and enter the new age of Aquarius, we are experiencing a shift in the emphasis of the global archetypes that imprint us as a species. The 37th gene key, and particularly its shadow frequency, have marked the age that we are now leaving. Those with an eye for occult information will perhaps recall the number 37 as being the number of Christ taken from Gematria, the ancient Hebrew system of alphabetical numerology. We are moving out of the sphere of the specific mythology surrounding Christ and into the sphere of the third aspect of the sacred Trinity, whose new mythology is based upon the great feminine archetypes of synthesis. This does not mean that the power behind the Christ myth will in any way diminish as we enter this new phase of evolution. What will change is our understanding and interpretation of the myth as its hidden aspects finally reveal themselves. This process ushers a flood of new mythic feminine images and archetypes into the collective consciousness. The 37th shadow is the shadow of weakness. Weakness, as we shall see, is nothing but a projection of the male psyche onto the female psyche, as, in the West, women have been viewed, up until recently, as the weaker sex. However, what appears to humans as weak is actually something that we cannot yet understand. We may see this enacted even in the externals of the Christ myth itself, in which one man surrenders to forces that finally overpower him. Naturally, it is the inner meaning of the myth that holds the real key, for it is only in the sacrifice and the subsequent resurrection that one finally comes to understand the hidden nature of Jesus's actions. Much about this 37th gene key, therefore, concerns the nature of a force that is perceived as weak, but that inevitably shows itself to be the opposite. The 37th shadow represents the inequality between yin and yang forces on our planet. The natural tendency of evolution has been to favor the physically strong. At lower frequencies, our genes know no other reality than the survival of the fittest. However, we have now reached a stage in evolution in which physical strength no longer governs our future direction. That future direction lies wide open for anyone, regardless of sex or strength. What we used to perceive as weak or strong is totally changing, even reversing. Those who thrust themselves to the top of the hierarchy through brute strength and subversion are losing their power, and those who hold a vision of synthesis based on self-transcendence are gaining more power. In this way, the world is transforming. The 37th shadow is undergoing a major mutation throughout humanity that will only build in speed and frequency as we move beyond its old boundaries and definitions. It is because of this mutation that the entire social structure of our civilization is crumbling. Here in the West, the traditional family unit is experiencing a natural demise, and at such times, great social change and unrest is much in evidence. Because of this inner rebalancing within the human psyche, the fabric of our society is being forced to change. The repressed feminine side of humanity is rising up to the surface once again, and this is changing the basic patterns of the traditional roles for men and women. This uprising of the yin force is actually beyond gender, but it is also confused by gender. Many women today are under the impression that the time for women is coming and the time for men is over. This attitude is simply another form of the 37th shadow, which always overemphasizes one aspect of the polarity. The true definition of weakness can be seen when the feminine principle is witnessed serving the masculine principle, which is how the world has evolved and survived up until this point. Wherever you see the submission of the female to the male, you are seeing the 37th shadow in action, and it can result in only one phenomenon: exhaustion, the 40th shadow, and programming partner of this 37th gene key. In the way our societies are currently structured, many women may feel impotent, financially dependent on men on account of having to stay at home and bring up children. Of course, there are always exceptions to this, but it is a general truism. The pole shift that is upon us will see the reversal of this tendency, so that the masculine serves the feminine. One of the modern reactions to this in developed societies can be seen in the large numbers of women having to go out of the home to work, usually leaving the children in some form of care or institution. Such a phenomenon can only create more division in the world, since the ones who suffer in this are always the children. The 37th shadow of weakness manifests both through men who cannot see holistically and women who try to redress the problem in the only way they know how, through entering the male world of hierarchy and competition. All such social issues as these invoke strong emotional reactions from men and women, as do the same issues when connected to religion. There can be no answers to these imbalances from the human mind. They are simply a sign of the transitional times that we are living through. Because of the emotional charge between the yin and yang, between men and women, to even discuss such issues arouses huge hidden tensions and opinions. In this respect, one of the great signs of the 37th shadow is your identification with your gender in the first place. The real issue is one of yin and yang, of an imbalance between archetypal forces, not between their manifestations. There are always exceptions to the general rules, so that there is always room for individual uniqueness. The mutative energy moving through this 37th gene key is also bringing an end to many other structures that have been a part of human civilization for so long. One of these structures is organized religion, which is essentially a male-oriented phenomenon based upon division and worship. The masculine left hemisphere of the brain divides in order to understand, whereas the feminine right hemisphere grasps the fundamental unity that is always and already present. This movement from worship to embodiment is such a profound transition for humanity because it cannot easily be understood through the mind. The shadow of weakness is actually a complete fabrication of the mind. We need these external crutches only as long as we perceive ourselves as weak without them. The moment we drop the crutches, we will come to see that we had strong legs all along. The essence of the dilemma of the 37th shadow is seen most clearly through the imbalance within the individual. What we fear most deeply through the 37th shadow is lack of support. Because our frequency does not allow us to feel a part of the whole, and therefore supported by the whole, we only give with the assurance that we will receive something back. This is the foundation of social economics, and its root is fear. What we don't have access to at this shadow frequency is the feeling of deep trust in the collective. We don't know that when we give from our heart, we will receive far more in return from somewhere in the collective energy field. Because we cannot anticipate how this energy might return to us, we do not trust it. Consequently, you can see that when you allow your mind to lead your life, you create weakness in the world because you sever the chain of support that exists naturally between all beings. Thus, it is in the human heart and its ability to grasp the holistic essence of life that our true collective future lies. In an individual human being, this change translates as the mind serving the heart. Repressive nature, over-sentimental. When the 37th shadow is repressed, it tends to manifest through inauthentic giving. These are people who are ruled by their emotions rather than their hearts, and they often believe that the two are the same. They repress their own fears through a dreamy mentality that may speak great words about humanity, but that lacks the inner strength to take a stand for itself. These are the people who, as victims of their own emotions, give the human heart a bad name. Whereas the heart is strong and fearless, the emotions can be fickle and overwhelming. Such people hide behind and within their emotions, which blind them to the deeper truths inside them. They have a tendency to over-process at the emotional level, which makes them draining for others to be around. The deepest irony is that these types of people are actually addicted to emotional states as a means of repressing their deeper fears. Reactive nature, cruel. The reactive nature projects its own fears out into the world where it sees only inequality. Out of this core belief, these people become hardened around their heart until they entirely forget what love feels like. As the polarity to the repressive nature, these people tend to see others as over-sentimental and will take advantage of their good nature. Out of these two patterns, the repressive and reactive, our current civilization is created. Only those who are no longer victims of their own or others' emotions can break the victim-abuser patterns lying at the heart of our communities. The people who we perceive as cruel need willing victims in order to rise up in the community. Once someone takes a stand anchored in their heart, these abusers are the first people to crumble. The 37th gift, equality, the ascent of the family. It is in the 37th gift of equality that a great hope is presently arising for humanity. Equality is such an easily misunderstood term. All humans are born equal, since we all share the same genetic code. But as we grow and enter society, it becomes apparent that we are not so equal. In reality, equality is a matter of perception, and it depends upon frequency. At the level of the 37th shadow, which sees humans in terms of strength and weakness, equality is nothing but a dream. Yet, at the gift level of consciousness, equality is a living ideal that lifts people out of the game of victims and winners. When you operate out of the 37th gift, you are living directly out of your heart, and all else is secondary. From the point of view of the human heart, all humanity is one family. This is not a mere sentimental dream, but an all-powerful truth rooted in a vast inner current of strength and love. Without love, you are always operating from the shadow frequency, and all you see and create is inequality. As the great mutation triggered by the 55th gene key sweeps through humanity, the very core structure of our civilization will readjust itself to this shift in consciousness. The flaws in the current social fabric of all cultures cannot be ironed out, but only phased out. A new world will have to grow within the ashes of the old, and it will be built upon the rock of the 37th gift of equality. When the balance within the human psyche is redressed, there will be no need of external religion. Neither will we have a patriarchy nor even a matriarchy. We will have a single stream of consciousness experiencing the true meaning of the word family. Out of this 37th gift, a new vision of the family will be born. The family unit is the most powerful crucible of love through which humanity will be transformed. The sheer force of love contained in the family is second to none. The love of a child for its parent and vice versa is as potent a force as any in the universe. As we create a new society based around the liberation of this love, our world will change very quickly indeed. The problem to date has been that the family has always been restricted to its gene pool or tribe, and it has always been contained within a hierarchical structure. The current social, governmental, and educational structures on our planet do not serve the family first. By overemphasizing individual achievement, they encourage competition between families, which also creates competition within families. Through the 37th gift, humanity will come to see that it is the family that makes all human beings equal. We will find a new vision of family, both locally and globally, and we will in time extend this vision to encompass the entire human family. The great mutation that is moving through the 55th gene key will first manifest as a change in our children as they are born with a new higher activation of their DNA. These children in turn will need a new family structure to support their collective awareness. Their very impact at an auric level will cause this structure to manifest. Even now, communities with higher awareness are beginning to understand new ways of conceiving and implementing this model. Families are the lifeblood of humanity, and a healthy family is a vehicle for such a potent force of creativity and love. The new family will become a vessel for collective ascension as we recognize the power of the new awareness carried by the coming generation. When we begin to build a civilization based around the view of an incarnating child, we will create a truly magical world. The love between a child and a parent is an archetype of unconditional love. At the shadow frequency, however, all love is conditional, which means that essentially it is not love. True love is based upon giving without the need for a return. The entire shadow frequency is thus based upon the principle of the bargain, of giving in order to receive. This bartering consciousness is what lies at the heart of modern civilization. It is seen through economics, government, and especially in relationships. It is here in the dynamics of all human relationships that bartering was born, and it is based upon the fear of not having enough. Through the 37th gift, you will discover a great economic secret. The more you give, the more you receive. Many people have misinterpreted this truth down the ages and have wondered why it does not appear to be true. Giving cannot be faked. You can give from your mind and you can give from your heart. Giving from your mind is always conditional, no matter how subtle, because it always has a secret expectation or hope attached to it. True giving is an act of insanity when viewed from the mind. The giving that comes from being in your heart leads to equality because it is based upon equality. The human heart carries this equalizing force wherever it moves, and it illuminates divisions in others by treating everyone with respect. Despite the mind's fears that equality will create a homogenized world in which everyone is the same, true equality is based upon respect for individual uniqueness. Indeed, it thrives on it. This kind of equality means starting with yourself. Giving is another place that the shadow frequency can hide and pull you down. Sometimes you may give to others out of a need for personal recognition or as a diversion from your own issues and fears. First of all, then, you must learn to give to yourself. As you will discover, it is through the love of your own self that you will find your love of others. In order to support another, you must first ask your heart how you can best support yourself, and out of that will come the answer of how to give so that both giver and receiver are fulfilled. To give to yourself in this way means to trust completely in the wisdom of your heart. It really is as simple as that. Experienced as friendship, the 37th gift is the glue that holds humanity together. In fact, true friendliness is the universal mark of the gift frequency. Our current age is truly an exciting time to be alive because this 37th gift is giving birth to a new social paradigm all across our planet. It will create out of itself a new social framework that synthesizes business, education, and family rather than setting them apart from each other. It will also bring an end to isolated family groupings and communities by networking, both geographically and globally, to create a new model for community that is based upon giving rather than controlling. This energetic type of friendliness will also bring an end to the notion of separate communities based on the worship of an external god or authority. Through the awakening of the 37th gift, each community will find that it holds the same core principle as all others, namely support of the earth and empowerment and nourishment of humanity as a whole. The 37th Siddhi, tenderness, the sacrificial lamb. To enter fully into the mystery of the 37th Siddhi, we will have to move more deeply into the mythic figure of Christ. Although there have been other figures with a similar mythology to Christ, such as the Norse Odin, who was hung from a tree, or even the Egyptian Osiris, whose body parts were scattered far and wide, the figure of Christ and his exact mythology has entered so deeply into the world psyche that it has a particular resonance with the times in which we are living. One needs to be clear from the beginning that we are not talking here of the Christ as he is generally understood by the Christian religion. We are looking at this man's life as a symbol of a deep archetypal process that governs all human beings, regardless of their beliefs or culture. As the second aspect of the mysterious Trinity, the Christ unites the two polarities of the masculine Father, prime Yang, with the feminine Holy Spirit, prime Yin. This is why Jesus is said to be both the Son of God and the Son of Man. He is the offspring of both Yin and Yang, and is therefore the great equalizing force between them. We have seen that the 37th gene key represents an evolutionary phase that is now coming to an end, which means that something new must also be born from it. The Christ myth itself must give birth to another dimension, and this dimension concerns the role of the feminine. As the story of Christ is currently understood, Jesus is seen as an embodiment of the divine man, born of a virgin womb and untarnished by sexuality. In the popular story, Jesus has no sexual encounter or attachment to women whatsoever. He stands alone as a proud and potent symbol of the patriarchy that sculpted this understanding of his life. However, without wishing to offend exponents of the popular version of the Jesus story, this interpretation of Jesus is somewhat sterile in terms of its connection to human sexuality. In the Christ myth, Jesus is pitted against sexuality in the form of the devil, and the devil has obvious connections to the feminine through the earlier myth of Eve and the serpent in the Garden of Eden. The 37th Siddhi is the Siddhi of tenderness, and tenderness is a quality most often associated with the exchange of love between a parent and child. Tenderness, in particular, is an archetypal motherly essence. Jesus himself is universally connected with the figure of the Lamb, whose essence is represented by this 37th Siddhi. This Lamb has a deep symbolism with our coming age because it represents the spirit of surrender to an overwhelming inner power. The sacrifice of the Lamb corresponds to the giving up of identification with outmoded outlooks and the embrace of a wider reality that lies beyond our current view. We, humanity, are the Lamb, and the universal spirit holds us in tenderness as a mother cradles her child. As individuals, we each have to bow our heads and accept the devil within us instead of pushing it down deeper into our psyche. The very thing that terrifies us the most will utterly transform us if we can but trust it. It is the source of our sexuality, the dark feminine shadow place within every human being that contains the greatest mystery of who we are and what we can one day become. The 37th gene key has emerged into our current world through the sacred sacrament of marriage. It became sullied and stagnant through its manifestation as a social contractual convention. The marriage we see in the world today is but a shadow of the true inner ideal of marriage. On an individual level, marriage concerns the inner balance and union of yin and yang within each human being. The Christ myth must therefore reflect this inner union through the marriage of Christ to his sacred bride, represented by Mary Magdalene. The modern resurgence of ideas that explore Christ connections to the figure of the Magdalene can be seen as a reflection of the resurgence of the repressed divine feminine. The city of tenderness is the awakened aura of this mystical union, since tenderness is an energy devoid of tension or sexuality. It is, in fact, the transcendence of sexuality. A great paradox is emerging through this 37th city. The divine feminine will primarily enter the world through men via the power of the mother. The collective imbalance of the feminine archetype is not to be found in women, but in men. The counterbalance to this is the rising of the masculine force of independence burgeoning in women. It is through women's independence that a new social structure will be born in the world that will place the early upbringing of children before all other factors. When children are nurtured by both mothers and fathers, and mothers and fathers are properly supported rather than torn apart due to social tensions, then children will come into the world emotionally balanced. This 37th city of tenderness is the natural climate that surrounds all parents and children. When boys are brought into the world surrounded by this support and tenderness, their feminine side will no longer be compromised, and the world as we see it will begin to change as these boys grow into emotionally balanced men. Conversely, it is through future young girls that great social change will be brought into the world. Energetically speaking, it is the feminine that carries the vision of synthesis and the masculine that will build it. This is the generalized blueprint of future society. It will be a world in which the masculine principle serves the feminine principle. So what we are now seeing is not a decline of the family unit, but a complete redefining of what family really means. Family is the structure that creates an aura of tenderness across the planet, empowering individuals and supporting communities simultaneously. In the future, family will no longer be an isolated tribal phenomenon, but a collective breath pattern that unites all human beings. This is the future that is coming. It is the same vision that Christ held as the natural state of humanity. It is what he referred to as the kingdom of heaven. The 37th city is unique among the cities in that it does not manifest through a single individual. It is the heart of the human family, drawing all individuals into its infinitely soft and loving embrace. It is not a force outside of humanity, as we have assumed for so many eons, but is our collective inner nature. As a vital aspect of the genetic codon family, known as the Ring of Divinity, the 37th gene key has some very powerful genetic programming companions: the 22nd city of grace, the 36th city of compassion, and the 63rd city of truth. Each of these codes brings the eventual manifestation of the full divine being into the world. As we move beyond the tribal and blood definitions that have dictated our traditional lifestyle for so long, we will see how limiting our current definition of family really is. The 37th city is an upsurge of consciousness that will slowly unite human beings as the 55th gene key frees us from our victim consciousness. Tenderness is a force to be reckoned with, and as its programming partner, the 40th city of divine will, testifies, It is a force that has us all set in its sights. In its very softness, it is insurmountable, invincible, and inevitable.